Hello and welcome to the Huntsville Insider. I'm Keith Ward. In part one of our series, All in the Family, we saw how a change in a school board nepotism policy helped keep school board member Ryan Renaud's future wife on the Huntsville City Schools payroll, plus how his friendship with Devyn Keith helped land him that school board seat in a very heated city council meeting. In part two, we'll take a deeper look at both those areas. Renaud was not only a friend to Devyn Keith, he also served as Keith's deputy campaign manager during his re-election in 2020. Official campaign expenditure forms indicate that Renaud was paid well over $2,000 for various services including fundraising, administrative, and consulting. Ryan, as a loan originator with Trustmark Bank, handled Devyn's home purchase in June of 2020. This house was the subject of recent news stories about an illegal Airbnb rental property that Councilman Keith has now shut down. So in June of 2021, when it was time to select someone for the vacant school board seat, the City Council went into an executive session to review background checks prepared by the city's Human Resources Department on the 5 candidates.
We need to receive information from our attorney, and this requires us to go into a closed session. Mr. Riley, would you actually like to let the public know what we're doing here?
The applicants for these positions submitted to background checks and such, and that information needs to be transmitted to the council, and done so in a private fashion in executive session.
When the City Council returned, it was time for nominations and a vote. It was no surprise that Devyn Keith nominated Renaud and later voted for Ryan for the position.
Voting for Mr. Cagle are Mr. Kling, Mr. Meredith, the chair, and in opposition, Ms. Akridge, Mr. Keith. Since Mr. Cagle has received 3 votes, he will be appointed to fill the vacancy.
But after a 3-2 vote that elected Philip Cagle to fill the vacancy, Keith complained about what took place during the previous executive session.
When we went into executive session not to speak on the issues, what was presented by those who control the executive session, which was HR directors who've done this before, and mechanisms that are put in place to be completely objective. What is the point of a background check, and what is the point of other considerations that is put together inside of executive session if at the end of the day we all bring in things that have no consideration of where it come from?
And Mr. Keith, you're absolutely right. That's why that information was not permitted to be shared with anyone else.
Councilman Bill Kling had received some anonymous information on the school board candidates that was not in the official background check provided by the city's Human Resources Department.
Do I not, as an individual council member, have a right to question my city attorney?
You wouldn't have went to the attorney if you did not want him to consider it. Thus, that information would have had to be considered by the rest of the council. If you only had to have it considered yourself, you would have never took your phone in there. You would have never made the statements you made.
That was why I was asking our city attorney, why did I have information that he didn't have if this was supposed to be a criminal background check?
If that was background information, that it was public knowledge, our professional, who makes more than we make, who has been doing this for every position in this city, would have found it in a background check.
The reactions and responses from Devyn Keith indicated that the unofficial information Bill Kling had received was about Ryan Renaud. Devyn stated that such information should not be trusted.
A statement was made in executive session of the comparative of impact. If we would have taken that executive session in its objectivity, we were presented by somebody who was a professional, who then takes the police report and other reports by an outside agency to give us consideration of people for a position in this city. At the very moment that we were given that information, that was not enough. There was a conversation and discourse between you and another city council member about the information. Information we were not available of must mean that that person had consideration of legal. I'm not trying to cut you off.
So after a heated discussion, the recommendation was made to go back into executive session.
The only way I know to fairly address it at this point, to honor the purpose of the executive session, is to go back into executive session, and then we can consider what is said, because what is talked about in there will be about the good name and character of one or more of the applicants.
So were there police records not in the background check performed by the city? The Huntsville Insider went to the official state website to find out. From the Alabama Administrative Office of Courts website, we found Ryan Renaud had several records, including an arrest for drug possession for marijuana, reckless driving for traveling at 101 miles per hour, and other motor vehicle violations. And due to Renaud's failure to appear in court or pay the fines on some of those charges, he had his driver's license suspended.
This session of the Huntsville City Council is called back to order. The executive session was held, no action was taken.
After returning from a second executive session, Councilman John Meredith asked for a motion to reconsider.
If it is possible, I'd like to make a motion for reconsideration.
If I am to understand, you're asking for reconsideration of the vote just taken.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second to reconsider the vote?
Second.
But under Robert's Rules of Order, which is used for most governmental bodies, there are certain times when a motion to reconsider cannot be used. One of those circumstances is when an election of appointment is known to the third party. Since Philip Cagle was selected in the original vote, was in the audience, and obviously heard the results, should a motion to reconsider be allowed?
Nominations are open.
Madam President, I'd like to nominate Mr. Ryan Renaud.
With a 4-1 vote to reconsider, the council proceeds with the selection process all over again.
I'd nominate Mr. Cagle.
Mr. Meredith nominates Philip Cagle.
But this time, a different outcome.
The new vote has 3 votes for Mr. Renaud, Mr. Keith, Ms. Akridge, Mr. Meredith, and in opposition, Ms. Kling and Mr. Kling and the chair. Mr. Renaud is now declared to be the winner of the vacancy of the district.
I just want to say that I think Mr. Cagle is a fine candidate, and I wanted to show my support for him. That is why I went ahead and nominated you as well. I think you are a fine individual, and I thank you very much for submitting your name and putting yourself into this process.
As Ryan is announced as the winner, he rushes up to Devyn Keith. Since the many personal connections to Ryan Renaud give the appearance of a conflict of interest, should Devyn Keith have recused himself from the vote? Under Robert's Rules of Order, it states that a person should not vote on a motion where they may have a personal interest, but adds, however, they cannot be compelled to refrain from voting. And there you have it for our special series called All in the Family, filled with alleged nepotism, cronyism, and favoritism, which reminds me of a quote from President John F. Kennedy, who said, "Politics is a jungle, torn between doing the right thing and staying in office." And we'll certainly keep an eye on that jungle in our own backyard. For the Huntsville Insider, I'm Keith Ward.